know that it's less stressful? And that is not true. So we actually probably, I feel like we might even have more stress than you. Because your teachers actually seem a lot more easygoing. I don't see a lot of bickering. With us, we have a lot of demands put on us. So I find it quite interesting that you're moving more towards a westernized model. So you're taking a lot of ideas from the U.S. And not all of them are great when they're all combined together because there are too many ideas. Okay? So the portfolios and form sets and rubrics, all of that, I know is coming from the U.S. And I apologize for whichever American came and proposed that to you. It's stressful. So we worry about that. More project-based, and it is true. We do try to make it more project-based, more cooperative learning. Have students take charge of their own learning. What else? Okay, small class size. So I don't know why, but a lot of people are under the impression that we only have around 20 kids in our classes. In the New York City system, I've been there for the past 5.5 years. The cap is between 30 and 34. So I've had 34 kids in my class. Oh, this one, no, this is small, right? But that's not everyone. Not everyone's in the photo. So this is like a little celebration. This is in June when we're celebrating, and a lot of kids have already gone on vacation, actually. So it looks small, but in reality, 30 to 34, okay? So I know you have 40, but guess what? Your kids are much easier to discipline than our kids. So 30 is really stressful for us. Okay, what else? We're not as focused on academic results. So also not true. We are actually moving towards the Eastern model, and we are taking a lot of the assessments that you do and implementing them back home. So this trade-off is really doing both of our parties harm. Okay, now we're spending a lot more time doing assessments instead of teaching. Okay. Okay. What else? Okay, the U.S. system is pretty liberal, not as structured as Singapore's system. Syllabus and content are not as rigid. Yes and no, okay? So no in the sense that for science and social studies, we get a scheme of work and we can teach it when we want and how we want to teach it. But for literacy and math, it is actually very structured, more structured than yours. So, for example, during literacy, we have a scripted plan. And it will say 10 minutes for vocabulary, 5 minutes for phonics, 10 minutes for writing. So everything is broken down to the last minutes, okay? Then for math, we have a math coach who's kind of like your HOD. The math coach tells you each day which lesson you have to be on. You're on 2.1 for this day, the next day 2.1 for the following 2.2. So you have a little bit more freedom. You get to choose as long as you cover your scheme of work. We don't have that freedom. So, okay, the system encourages pupils to be vocal and ask a lot of questions. That is true, yes. So that I know a lot of teachers in Singapore want to know, how do I get the kids to be more vocal? In the U.S., we do a lot of cooperative learning. We have a lot of demonstrate, think, pair, share, turn and talk. I think they're concepts that you're familiar with. But we try to have them complete and speaking complete sentences. Okay, so we're moving a lot towards student-centered learning. Okay, now what are some things that you want to know? Are there national exams like in Singapore, like PSLE? No, so not in the primary level at least. So in New York State, they actually start their exams in 3rd grade. So that's when it gets really stressful. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they have New York State exams. Is it just a one-way teaching teacher-pupil or two-way interaction? I feel ours can be very much interactive learning. Okay? And let's see. How is the U.S. education system different from ours? School hours, so we go from 8 a.m. to 2:20 and sometimes 3 o'clock. So around the same amount of hours, actually. Are the kids being grouped according to their exam marks for every class? Well, now, not so much. We have the special education reform, where they're actually trying to mix the special ed kids with the other kids in there, and then it's all mixed level. We used to have a top class and like a lower band class, and now it's all mixed because we found it's unfair for one teacher to have the best class and then the other teachers kind of suffer and get to struggle. So now it's just mixed ability. So it is harder because you have to differentiate. And then we do and we don't differentiate. Do meaning for stations, we have differentiating stations during literacy. But we don't in the sense that we have so much to cover that we cannot spend all this time to differentiate when we're teaching. Okay? And then is there a teacher assistant attached to each class? No. So one teacher usually per class, unless it's a special education class and they need the other person to be there to co-teach. And then for some classes, like I'm the English language teacher, so I will co-teach or I'll teach, and the classroom teacher helps facilitate. Okay, so that's the only time when they actually get support. Okay, so thank you for the participation. All right, so let's move on to my observations at Greenridge. Okay, so I noticed that this is across all the classes, that the teachers are so knowledgeable. They're excellent at modeling all the concepts and explaining them. Okay, so if the student doesn't get it, the teachers are very good at finding a different way, or making it. I remember Madam Medine, she would make it more relevant to their lives. Okay, because sometimes math seems so abstract, but then she finds a way to connect it with the child. Okay, so they understand it better. So that you are all doing fantastically. Okay, and teachers are constantly pushing the students' thinking. So instead of saying whether an answer is right or wrong, they question them. Why? Even if it's wrong. Why? Give me a justification. You know, and so I like that they don't just give you the answer. Okay? Like the mind courses, they're going to keep going. Okay, students' responsibility and honesty. So I'm surprised, I'm so amazed that in the canteen they could actually purchase their own food. Our kids, they don't even know money really. So for the fact that they're able to be responsible and just learn those little life skills, I think that's very impressive. And then the honesty with the green pens, the correction pens, that's amazing. My kids will erase the answers and write the right answer. You can't trust them.
We have some of those as well.
You do. But you know. And then the staff and student rapport. I really love how welcoming everyone is. It seems like you all, it's like a big, happy family, and I think that's why a lot of you have stayed here for so long. The students are so respectful. Even if they're like, good morning, Miss Gigi, I was like, wow, this is very structured. Although she's not here right now, but CT Badaria, Madam CT, she had the kids sing a song to me. They're like, good afternoon, and they said something silly, but it was quite fun. So in the hallways, they're very respectful to the teachers, and just the relationship, you know, you really take the time out to actually meet with them, to conference with them, if they're struggling with anything. Plus, it seems like even though your administration, we're not here right now, it seems like you're more able to communicate with your administration on things that are working, things that are not working. Because sometimes in our system, we feel kind of restricted, and we really can't speak up. Okay, so those are my observations. Are you guys still with me? Still with me? Okay. All right, so some differences. Remember the New York City system and with your system. The first one is the classroom setup and management. This, oh man, I hate rows, you know, but I was also taught in rows, so this whole structure. So in the classes here, some of the lower primary classes, they actually have table setups to promote cooperative learning. And then some classes, most classes, they're either in pairs or rows. So in the US classes, we usually have tables with groups of 4 to 6 students. Okay? And I think that's actually the classroom setup, that actually affects the management. Because if it's set up like this, it's very easy. So the teachers, except for Ms. Pena C, I think she has a really tough job managing P5. Those kids they're quite challenging. So she has to be on top of them. But for all the other classes, you just have to ask, are you ready? And the kids are like, ready. You know, like, I'm watching, I'm like, wow, really? Like, how does that work? If I ask, are you ready? The kids will just keep talking. They'll say, no, Miss Chang, I'm not ready. So for us, we have individual management systems, group, class management systems. We have a lot of co-response where I'm like, second graders, and they're like, our number 1. So I need to do a lot of that, switch it up, keep them engaged. So they're much harder to discipline. Let me show you some of the classroom. Okay, so this is a P1 classroom. This is actually a classroom that I work in. So it may look beautiful, right? So that's usually the first impression. There's a lot. It's very print rich compared to here, but not all of it is necessary. Some of it is actually stuff that doesn't benefit the students' learning, and it just makes the teachers stress out more. Like some of the bulletin boards, they're not necessary. Okay. So we have a lot of, that's what we call fluff, and we're trying to do away with that, but it's quite challenging when you're in the system. Okay. So at least you don't have to really worry about certain things like that. Hopefully it doesn't come here. Okay. Hopefully you won't have to. And this is a P5 classroom. Okay. Sorry, my colleagues blurred out the students, but we use a smartboard actually. So I'm going to talk about resources next. So I noticed that all the classrooms have projectors here. There are some smart boards, but I've actually come to appreciate the way you teach with the projector. You're experts, and then you just lift it up and you write, and you can play videos. We don't even have access to YouTube back in our school, so I have to convert videos in order to show them to the students. So the only difference between the smartboard and the projector is that you can manipulate things on a smartboard, whereas the projector you can't do that. But I feel like it's a lot cheaper, and it's not as temperamental as the smartboard, so that's the benefit of working with projector. So resources, okay, I briefly mentioned that. And also in math, you have those little chips, the ones, tens, and hundreds. I want to go buy some of those. And like the model method, the model ruler, we don't have that. So some resources I want to bring back to the States. I think they'll benefit our kids too. Teacher autonomy. Okay, so that I mentioned earlier. We're not given as much freedom as we want, but so I think everyone thinks that, wow, we have it, it's not so stressful. But in reality, we're kind of similar, I suppose. I don't know, I think you have more autonomy than we do, actually. Okay, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then student participation. So our kids are more vocal. Yes, they do speak up. And I think because we have certain things in place that make them to encourage the speaking. Because our belief is that if they could communicate their ideas coherently, then guess what, when it comes to writing it, they'll be able to write it down. But if they can't express themselves, then guess what, it's going to be very difficult. It's like asking for magic to happen, and they're just going to magically know what to write. And so I'm going to show you some of that. This is actually a P1 classroom as well. Accountable talk. So we make the students take accountability for everything they say. So we give them some sentence structures. And I don't want to say, okay, you have to definitely promote this here, but these are some things that you could use in your classroom if you wanted to. So it's kind of a debate. I agree with, Mr. G because, or I disagree. So they're actually kind of debating against one another. Or what did you mean when you said, I wonder? So you just give them some sentence starters, and then they'll start using it when you set the routine. And then this is a P2 classroom, so different teachers choose different speech bubbles. Okay, that reminds me of, in my opinion, depending on what age level they're at. Okay, just to get them started, I would like to add. Okay, so now I need your participation because I'm going to show you a vocabulary lesson. So earlier I asked the group, would you rather have me show you the vocabulary lesson as if you were my students, or would you rather have me just lecture about it in a boring way? So, who wants me to show it to you as if you were my students? Okay, lecture? That's okay, we have one person that raised their hand earlier, and then most people didn't even raise their hand, so then I just decided. Okay, so I'm going to act like you were my students, and I was teaching you this vocabulary lesson. Okay? I have 5 days to teach vocabulary per lesson. The first day consists of me just introducing the words, the meaning, seeing it in a meaningful sentence, and what I call TPR, which is total physical response, where the kids act it out, okay? And then they do a little turn and talk. So they're using the word. The second day is when I review it and we do some chart activities, so I'll show you that in a bit. All right, and then you'll see some of the accountable talk, the complete sentences, and trying to get them to be more engaged and involved in their learning. Okay, so I'll probably ask for you to speak up. Don't be scared. This is only a P1 vocabulary lesson, okay? All right, so boys and girls, these are new vocabulary words for the week. So I'm going to say it, and I want you to repeat after me, okay? Everyone, function. Dine. Nutritious. Okay, do any of these words look familiar to you? Has anyone seen them? You can raise your hand if you've seen them before, some of them. It's okay. It's not, it's okay. All right. Does anyone know what any of them might mean? Food. Okay, good. Okay, so which one has to do with food? Nine? Okay, all right, so good. So this is like a way of activating their prior knowledge, okay? You're familiar with that. So I might make some commentary. Okay, now. Yes.
Did you say P1?
Yes, this is P1.
Oh,
Okay, this is robust vocabulary. So the idea, that's a good question. When we do this in P1, it seems very advanced, right?
Yeah.
But you're not trying to get them to be experts at these vocabulary words. It's just introducing it to fine-tune them so that you're expanding their vocabulary repertoire, so that they actually are familiar with the words, but they're not expected to know the exact meaning and the spelling and all that. It's just exposure. Yes, more usage, just exposure to it, okay? Because I think you have to use a vocabulary word at least 8 times in order for it to be stored in your memory, and you have to be exposed to it around 14 times. That's actually a lot of times, and I know we don't have a lot of time for it, but on the 5th day, I usually do vocabulary popcorn, where they have to produce their own original sentences using the words from the week, and then I fill the cup with kernel. Then when it goes to the top, we have a popcorn party. So that's kind of an incentive, and it doesn't have to be during literacy. Like I have my kids in the hallways, they're trying to use vocabulary. They're like, oh, Miss Jen, you know, I eat something nutritious for lunch. I'm like, oh yeah, what you eat? And like something like that, where they're really trying to use it outside of the classroom as well. Okay, does that answer your question? And then the objectives up top are more for the administration if you walk in. Okay, so. Okay, first word, boys and girls, is function. Everyone say function. Okay, I want you to read the sentence with me, all right? Ready? Go. Your eyes have an important function. The function of your eyes is to see things. Okay, so something's function. When you call it something's function, you're just talking about its job, okay? Or its use. So you see this person, she has her eyes open, so the function of her eyes is to see things. So I'm going to name some body parts. So this is the part where you have to act it out, okay? I'm going to name some body parts, and I want you to show me its function, all right? So act it out with me. So let's start with something easy. So your eye, show me its function. Show me its function. Okay, to see, right? Good. Okay, what about your nose? To smell, good. What about your hands? Your hands, to touch, right? To grab, cat, yes, many functions. What about your tongue? Okay, good. All right, very good. Okay, now let's try to use the word function in a sentence. Okay, so I want you to turn and talk to a buddy. Not yet. You're going to use the word function to complete the sentence about the picture. Now, this is a story we've been working on. So you learned about plants and weeds. You can reread it and use it to complete the sentence. Okay, so let's read the sentence first so you know how to start your sentence. Ready? Go. The function of leaves is to turn and talk to your buddy, and then I'm going to call on a few of you. Go ahead. Okay, so that is one of the functions. Very Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, who would like to share out and complete this sentence for me using the word function? Now that you had a chance to talk to your buddy. Now, don't raise your hands all up at once, otherwise I'm going to call on some people. So this is the point when you usually do this, if you promote this in the younger grade, it's kind of like less threatening for them, okay? Because they already shared with someone else. So at this point, they should feel confident about their answer. Okay, so don't you feel confident? Don't you want to share? Go ahead.
The function of leaves is to make food to a plant.
Very good. And where did you find that answer? Right there. Yes. Excellent. I love how you use the picture to help you. The answer's right there, boys and girls. And then someone else gave you a different answer, which is not in the picture, but it's something a different function. So, what's your name over here?
Sawi.
Sawi?
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me, can you add to what he said? So this is when you can have them add on ideas, okay?
The function of leaf is to absorb sunlight.
Good. Did everyone hear that? Okay, excellent job. Okay, so boys and girls, this word is? Function. Very good. Okay, next word. Everyone say dine.
Dine.
Okay, let's read the sentence together, okay? Ready, go. Cosmo likes to dine with Wanda at their favorite restaurant after they finish school. Alright, so when you say dine, it's just a fancy way of saying that you're eating dinner. So instead of saying I eat dinner, you say I dine, okay? So what I want you to do right now, using a set of people, is make pretend you are dining with your friends, with your family. So maybe you're eating some nice chicken with some rice, okay? So go ahead, dine away, dine. Okay, all right, my diners, bring it back now. So sometimes I have them do things where they get up from the rug, and I'll tell them, okay, you're going to, like the word soar. We're going to make pretend you're an eagle, you're going to soar. So then they'll actually go to the classroom soaring. Or if I use gather, they'll go around make pretend that they're gathering or something. So you could use these in action with them just to get them out of their seats and moving. Okay? All right, so now let's use it in a sentence. So now you're going to think. So usually when you do think, pair, share, it's when there's usually more than one answer, okay? So I want you to think about this picture that has Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and Pluto. Because you're going to pair, you're going to buddy up, and then you're going to share, okay? But this time, when you share, I don't want you to share what you said. I want you to share what your buddy said, okay? So now you have to practice your listening skills, okay? So let's read the sentence, and then I'll have you think, pair, share. Ready? Go. Pluto the dog wants to dine with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse because, go ahead, turn and talk to me. Think, pair, share. Yes. Oh, yes.